Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here as ever for today's video all about how to pass your upcoming Advanced Taxation ACCA exam and taking you through all of the free resources available to you on ACCA's website that you can access for free. I mean, what isn't there to like about that? If this is the first time you visited my channel before, my name is James. I'm an ACCA qualified member from the UK, and on my channel I help out ACCA students and accounting students around the world pass their upcoming exams. And my YouTube channel is really subscriber led because I just answer all of your lovely queries. So if you have any questions or sort of feedback on the video, make sure you leave me a comment below. I answer all of them, and as ever, a video is always dedicated to one of my lovely subscribers, and today is no different. So, Bianca, look at the editing there, brilliant stuff. Thank you very much for your actual comment, and as you can see down here, we've got what tips do you have for someone that did taxation a year ago and is now getting ready for advanced taxation? I started, but there is a lot of assumed knowledge, but I'm not so keen as when I did taxation. Okay, I get what you mean. Well, Bianca, these are going to be the free resources that's going to reinforce that knowledge, and really for anyone who's starting out on advanced taxation, it's a really, really big module, but I would also add it was one of the most rewarding modules because if you haven't watched any of my other videos on the channel before, I did taxation the first time and I failed it. Well, sorry, I did advanced taxation the first time and failed it, and then did advanced taxation the second time, different strategy, and passed it. So in the video, I'm going to go through all of my different strategies, so make sure you watch to the end, and I'll put the link in the description below where you can access all of the resources on ACCA's website. If this is the first time you visited my channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the button below so you get access to all of my free materials, and make sure you give the video a massive thumbs up so that more ACCA students can see these videos. Also, if you've got any colleagues who you think it might actually benefit, or study buddies, wherever they may be around the world, make sure you share them this video because, again, these could be the little differences that can get them the 50 plus and to pass their advanced taxation exam, which is the point of the actual channel. So there we go on that. So before we get cracking on this, make sure you got a pen and paper at the ready. We're going to be going through this step by step, going through all the free resources. As I said, the link's in the bottom. I'll put a cheeky screenshot up here of what it will look like because I'm just showing off there on the editing. It's getting ridiculous. But get comfy. I'm going to walk and talk you through. Let's head over to the main screen now and get kicked off. 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay then, so if you've clicked the link in the description to this video, it's going to take you directly onto ACCA's website for the advanced taxation paper. I'm on the side here, all the important information is there in the middle, so I'm just going to walk and talk you through all of the key elements that I would definitely be paying attention to if I had to sit the examination again. So first of all, for anyone who is completely new to the actual module itself, maybe you've not even opened up your study text, this is the first video you're watching, you've got to be aware of the pass rates where, give or take, it's about 40%. So 4 in 10 students who sit the exam will pass the exam, which is pretty low, but it's not as low as some of the other options, I must say. But it's just so you're aware of the actual details and the sort of specifics that we'll talk about within the video today. So make sure you stay to the end because this video will help you be one of those 4 in 10 that will pass your exam, like I did at the second attempt. But we get onto that later, it's all right. So the first thing before we actually click onto any of the links is the Ethics and Professional Skills module on the side here. Now, this is all part of your actual ACCA, so you need to complete it to actually qualify. And the reason why I say you should do it is because students who have completed their Ethics and Professional Skills module before doing the Advanced Taxation exam are more likely to pass it because there are ethics and actual professional skills within the actual syllabus for it. So the ball is in your court. Make sure you get it down as an action point after this video that you go away and actually implement and do the module straight away. I would highly, highly recommend it. Now, getting on to the actual exam resources, as you can see here, well, we better start with the actual introduction because there's an absolute gem of a resource on here. Well, first of all, you've actually got a nice little video from ACCA. Again, you can watch that in your own time. But if you scroll down to the bottom on here, to these resources, this is the first PDF, the essentials on one page, that I would highly recommend you download, print out, and put within your resources. But as ever, being a very professional recorder now, here's one I prepared earlier. I mean, if only I was a chef. Yeah, different career, maybe in the future. But these are the important areas in the advanced taxation exam for the UK on here that you need to be aware of. Everything from how we prepare for it, what calculations, how we should actually interpret it, how to explain what are the good answers. So we'll just walk and talk it through. So you've got on here for actual detailed knowledge. So look on here, you will need detailed knowledge of the actual syllabus. So maybe if you've not done the tax paper, so the actual old F6 paper, or just the normal tax paper in a long time, maybe you want to actually get out those old notes and books for you to go through and to check out some of the up-to-date articles that we'll touch on later on, because it will just reinforce that knowledge. Obviously the standards and the actual allowances will have changed probably since you've been doing that, so it's just another thing to get down. We'll come on to what paper you should be sitting later on and which rates will be applied for it. So you've got, be aware that all questions will be scenario based, mixture of different elements on there. We've got consideration of more than one tax, different planning and interactions of different taxes on there. So all about actually applying it back to the syllabus and also the scenario. So take the syllabus, apply it to the scenario and show off how much detailed knowledge that you have. And trust me, when they say detailed on there, you have to be detailed. And I'm sure you're looking at your textbook now for advanced taxation and saying, James, where do I begin? Because it's the biggest textbook out there. You've just got to break it down actual section by section, and then, like they put on here, think more, write less. So it's all about actually understanding what the requirement is asking for, planning that answer, so picking up on those key clear and concise points, identifying the relevant issues, and then applying it to writing it out and not waffling. If you waffle or just write lots and lots of things that you can talk about for the topic, but don't relate it to what the requirement was asking for, then you won't pick up any marks. And as well on the bottom there, preparing any calculations and writing concisely are really good exam techniques to get written down for you to actually pass this exam. Preparation, as you can see on here, knowing your stuff, actually getting familiar with the practice platform, and then spotting the triggers as to say which type of tax am I referring to. So we'll come on to the actual syllabus later, but is it corporation tax, income tax, value-added tax? These are the things that need to be going through your mind. And then tips for success, as you can see down here, you've got everything from identifying all of the requirements, all the references in the scenario, so there will be actual marks for your presentation with this. Also, you'd have to look into the past papers, for that, for specific questions and the different requirements. It will tell you if you gain any marks on that basis. And then don't waste time addressing issues which have not been asked for. That is another area why people will fail this exam. You can also see some of these links down at the bottom here. So if you just hover your mouse over it, it's going to take you directly to another area on there that is linking to team guidance from the examining team, professional exams, technical articles. So again, really helpful for you. And when it comes to tackling the exam, about reading the articles, so just being really specific, as you can see on there, about what were the key aspects to identify within the question, and then how do we actually implement that to our answer. Because as you can see on there, writing a good answer, how to demonstrate professionalism on there, usually relating to question 1, and those include those 4 professional marks as to say writing in a memo or a note, and that links into your actual presentation, how clear and concise you were on the advice, and how effectively you've communicated that essentially to the external marker and saying, well, 1, have they actually answered the question what are being asked for? Have they just wrote down anything they can remember? And then actually applying it back to the scenario is really key there. So coming on to now, back onto the actual main screen. So what we have on here, if we just pop back up to the top, is, again, watch that video in your own time. But then we've got the actual introduction on here. So the actual computer-based examination. So especially if maybe you've had a break from your studies, you've not actually maybe done a CBE or computer-based examination before, really helpful introduction on there. And then you've also got the strategic CBE platform guidance document, because all of the actual strategic papers have different setups. So I would definitely recommend that you have a look at this specifically for advanced taxation. So this is the actual guide on here. It's got everything about the actual workspace, how it functions effectively, and especially from a toolbar perspective, because you're going to have to do calculations, explaining it as well. This is where lots of time can be lost as well, especially if you're not familiar with it. So I'll show you where some of the actual specimen papers can be found later on, but look at these functions on here, everything from percentages to formatting to fractions. All the different functions are all on there. Definitely something to look at to help you out going into your advanced taxation exam, along with some of the other really good platform videos on there, spreadsheets, work processing, and question practice. So again, balls in your court, have a look at them. I'd definitely be putting those on my list to have a look at. We've got more generic sort of stuff on here now, so you've got sort of planning your studying, and then everything on the basis of who your actual provider is, making sure you've got the right text, again making sure it's up to date to the actual right tax year, which we'll touch on later, and having a study plan. Now for me, I was working within a small practice and we were doing taxation on a week-by-week basis. I would say for this to go through all the syllabus, you're going to need a minimum of 3 months. Easily, it is that big, and I would highly recommend actually doing this exam by itself because it's just that wide in scope and the detail you have to go into. So I would say a minimum of 3 months. Do it by yourself, and especially if you're not from a tax background, really, really look into the syllabus, go into as much detail as possible. Now, I realise when you can actually get your results and then you can sign up maybe for the next sitting, so that could be, for example, you sat the exam in June, you got the results back in July, and then you might do the September sitting, so you have 7 weeks. It would be very, very tough to learn the syllabus, to do enough question practice papers, and then to also pass it effectively in the 7 weeks. But again, it all comes down to the available time. Maybe you're just studying. It could be completely up to you, but would I recommend it with a full-time job on top of it? I'd only do it if you really had to for work, or if you had a cut-off issue, or if you'd already failed before and you've got lots of retained knowledge. But starting afresh, that would be very, very tricky in my book, I would say. I'd want a bit more time to really understand all of the core concepts because they apply to real life as well. Now we've got the examining team guidance, another really helpful area where we'll come on to this later on, but that is the sort of read more area. It links into another article which we're coming on to later on, so feel free to check it out, but I'm going to show you the PDF later on, so make sure you stay to the end of this video because that is the key critical resource that I'd 100% be looking at. Next, we've actually got the self-check quizzes that are sort of ready to go, but this is to sort of underpin what your actual knowledge is. So there you go, you've got the underpinning knowledge over there. I'd only be looking at this really after I'd gone through the study text. If you want to get that in your notes, that would be when I would be doing it. And again, if maths isn't your strongest point, there are other sort of self-checks on here to help your learning, but the English side is a real key aspect. Maybe English isn't your first language, that's okay, it's all right, but it's a key element within this examination that you need to go and explain what your calculations mean for the client based on the scenario. So definitely something to have a look at. Again, free resource on there for you to go and check out. So after the actual quizzes and the self-checked quizzes on there, you've got the syllabus. So really key aspect, and first of all, make sure you pick the right exam. I know people who have actually selected the wrong one by accident, but you can get it changed. But it's not easy, but to sort it all out. I'm just going to stay consistent from the one I did, but feel free to pick out which one is yours. Again, a really useful tool that some students just completely miss. And then select the one which is the most up to date to you. But the key thing to note down here is, as you can see, for the UK paper, it's June to March. So you have the sittings throughout there of March, June, September, December. So the first sitting of the new rules and the new allowances is June. So that will be when you're hoping to actually do this for the first time, because if you were to fail it, then when you were to resit, then you'd have the same allowances, the same percentages, everything that you've learned. Versus, just to be aware of here, just from my experience, it's a case of if you sat it in March and failed it, you then have to resit in June at the earliest, but then you'd have the different rates. So you'd have the rates and allowances of that paper, what you failed, and then you'd have to do the rates and allowances of this one down here, which I can show you as to, well, where would be the actual changes. So this is the document on here. Again, 100% I'd be going through this before my examination, probably after when I've gone through the actual tuition and the study text. It nicely breaks it down as to the different sort of levels and expectations that you need going into this. Again, I'm just going to focus on the key aspects that you need to be aware of ahead of your exam. It's got everything about the guidance of the actual assessments, and this is where if you are struggling on your actual knowledge, or maybe you've not done taxation in a long time, make sure you pull out your actual taxation books, have a reread over those, and that will be a very good starting point before getting into the more detailed areas of the advanced taxation paper. It then gives you a nice little introduction as to what are the expectations, what could be on the syllabus, how we build on the knowledge, areas of tax like income tax, corporation tax, capital gains tax, but I'm going to show you that in a moment on here. Now, this is a really important area for the main capabilities. In other words, what it's saying here is going into the exam, you need to be comfortable doing those things from A to D. And if you can do that, you are going to be fine going through your examination, because it will then link into the actual syllabus on here. So what it means here is, and I'll show you when we come on to the detailed syllabus, so the knowledge and understanding of the UK tax system through the study of more advanced topics within taxes studied previously, and the study of stamp taxes. And then that is broken down into 6 areas, which I would highly recommend. Really good exam tip on here is get a folder or get a sort of pile or system that you could break it down, all of your notes, all your past paper questions, that separate them out into those 6 areas, from income tax, chargeable gains, inheritance tax, corporation tax, stamp tax, and value added tax, that you can put all your notes in separate folders. That is definitely going to help you out. And what I didn't do when I actually did this for the first time, and then when I did it the second time, I broke down all of the different folders and areas, and it just paid dividends. It just made my life so much easier, because you can go through so much in this. So coming on to the next aspect on here, we've got the detailed study guide. So again, you've got it goes into a lot more detail on here. So we just saw that we had income tax as one of the areas, and then it breaks down for you every single aspect of income tax that you actually need to be aware of for your exam. So I'd again be looking at this after I've gone through the core text, and then when I'm going through question practice. So if I didn't know anything in particular, or I needed a bit more information on it, this is where it's completely broken down. Yes, it looks like a lot of information, but it's to help you. That's the key thing. Now, I touched on earlier about what happens if you failed in March and then had to resit. So there'll be changes in actual rates and allowances, and maybe different rules in there as well. Well, at the bottom of the syllabus, as you can see on here, this breaks down all of the amendments to the actual syllabus from a sort of content perspective on here, first of all, and then the actual rates and allowances are what we'll come on to later, which are at the start of the exam paper. So it is broken down for you on there, but it's just to give you a little overview for potentially some of the actual restrictions in this case, or clarification, or tapered, or withdrawals into more detail on there. So just to be aware of, and then we'll come on to the allowances later on. So that takes us through that area there for the syllabus, for the UK paper, and you can orientate it to whichever one you're doing. We've got more examinable documents on here. Again, finding the one you are relating it to. So you've got the UK, and what you need to do is find the most up-to-date one that you are doing. So again, you've got June and 2020, 2021. So if you click on the actual documents itself, it's then going to pull you up to an examinable document on here. Really helpful, free resource, and it just outlines what could be on your actual examination. And it's a really helpful checklist to say, am I competent with the actual Finance Act, and have I had a look through the examiner's reports, and what are the breakdowns on here? Because it tells you with the little ticks on the side what could be actually coming up in your actual examination, or in this case what instructions relate to your exam. And this is where all the different rates and allowances that we talked about earlier you would need to apply. And again, this is where it comes down to all the different rules and the actual aspects of the exam that you need to know in great detail to help you apply it to the scenario and then apply the correct rates with all the correct workings. And as you can see on here, there is a lot to, well, you don't have to remember them because they're actually provided to you, but you've got to remember how to actually apply them utilising pro formas. So if you don't know what a pro forma is, that's where you actually take the workings that you see within the past papers, take out the numbers, and it's just a really helpful skeleton format that no matter what the question, you can put in the numbers and then follow it through as well. So that takes you through all of the actual potential areas that you could be questioned on and asked for. So again, another free resource. It really helps to actually break down the syllabus into those key critical areas that again you could be putting in those separate folders to help you out. So coming on from the actual examinable documents, again you've got the English and math support on here. So if English isn't your first language or you need a bit more help with maths or the actual calculations, there are loads of different free resources on there, again just to help you out if you are in need of that sort of support before your examination. And then we're coming on to effective learning, as you can see with revision. And this is where obviously it's very generic on here as to say, well, you go through the phase of going through your study text, then you've got your actual past paper questions. But for the actual exam of the advanced taxation, this is where the core text, the core understanding is absolutely fundamental. So some exams you can get away with just going straight into question practice. You'll attempt a few answers, you'll learn a few bits, and then go, oh, I didn't know that bit, so I'll write down that and I'll learn it for next time. With advanced taxation, if you don't know the core strategies of laying them out, applying the actual rates, having the core knowledge and having the mindset of trying to apply it to the scenarios or picturing the client themselves, that really comes down from proper old school, sat down with the study text, going through chapter by chapter and having that underpinning knowledge, especially if you've not done taxation in a long time. It will really show up in poor marks if you don't have that core knowledge. So if you haven't looked at it a long time, I would highly recommend going back to the study text and really going into it in great depth. But just break it down chunk by chunk and then set yourself small targets that you can check off day by day. We've also touched on the CBE, so the computer-based examination actual process on here, so how to actually prepare for it. And again, you've got some fantastic videos specific to advanced taxation, what to do, how to actually set it up, planning your answers, and again, you've got some other alternative ways to watch it there, but maybe put that in your revision process so that it's a way, this will be helpful so you don't waste time in the exam, because that's the last thing you want to do when you have a system error or a system failure, and then it costs you even more time when, trust me, in this exam, the time absolutely flies by. We've then got on here the examiner's report. So we touched on this earlier, and I didn't want to steal my thunder on it, but this is where you've got the examiner's reports where you've got to work back from the most recent, working your way back, but in this case for 2021, I'd probably maximum would do, because they do take up a lot of time, they've got a lot of information, I'll show you on here, but try to go through as many as you possibly can, because when you go through it on here, so this is the actual examiner's report. I mean, I was that happy for like this lady when I passed the exam, but the long nights and the early morning studying it, gosh, I wasn't quite that happy some days. But coming on to more important things, it now breaks it down for you as to previous exam style questions, how it was actually laid out, and then also saying what did students do particularly well on this, so applying the actual figures and describing it as an intangible asset and with the goodwill, for instance, on here, and then also saying where did people actually go wrong on here, so where could students improve. So a common mistake made in questions of this nature is to take the profit or loss on disposal and to adjust this for the tax figure on there. So they actually explain where students usually make the mistake and then where they can improve. So easily broken down for you, really helpful. I'd be going through these along with the actual past papers, what we'll be going on, but again, it's understanding, say, the gift before becoming UK resident or gift after becoming UK resident. This is where you get into the real nitty-gritty details that I'm afraid you just have to know and learn and apply for this exam, or you are not going to pass it. That is the bottom line, I'm afraid, on here. So that really takes you through. You've got loads of different questions on there, all broken down, tons and tons of detail. I'll leave you to have a read through in your own time, and then a nice little conclusion at the end to actually break it down for you. So in general terms, candidates who are successful on the paper are able to demonstrate competence and skills in the following 4 key areas. So precise knowledge of tax rules, straight away. We've already talked about that on the video. It's so key. And then also brought forward from the original tax paper. So that's the F6 paper on there. Apply the knowledge to specific circumstances of the scenario being tested. So if you don't apply it to the scenario, you're not going to get the marks. Read carefully and address each of the individual requirements within a question. So what that means is it might be a 10 marker where you've got to actually discuss performance and maybe the cash flow of the business. And if you don't talk about performance and you don't talk about cash flow, you're probably going to limit yourself to 5 out of 10. So yes, answer all the requirements, because you've got to be attempting 10 marks, not part of the marks. And they take the time to think and plan their answers and manage their time well. So true. Time management on this, you've got to get better at the actual 1.8 minutes per mark. So that's the 3 hours, 180 minutes divided by 100 marks gives you 1.8 minutes per mark. And then the planning of the answers, writing down some buzzwords, some trigger terms that they mention in the reports as well, to actually guide your answer so that we actually hit the nail on the head and stay clear and concise to what the requirement is asking for. So underrated on there. So that is the actual examiner's report. So if you go actually back to advanced taxation on there, so make sure you've got that down in your written notes from this video as a actual sort of action point from this, so that you go away, apply it directly, and that is going to be so key for you on there. We've also got on here the actual practice platform, so you've got more question practice. We've looked at the actual PDF before, but you can access on here, log into your actual ACCA student account, attempt some specimen and practice exams. Again, it will be high on my agenda after I've gone through the study text and I'm starting to go through past paper questions. Then, as you can see on here, we get onto the past exam library. So going down, make sure you select the exam area that you're doing it from, so you don't get overwhelmed by it, and then you can click going back on here from March and June 2021, and then going all the way back in this case to 2017. Now the key things on here are, I'd first of all recommend you actually print out this or screenshot it, whatever works best for you, but get a hard copy and then start to tick off going through as many past papers as you possibly can. But then just note on there as to when the tax rates have changed, because you'll see some figures and you'll go, where did that figure come from? Well, it may be because the personal allowance will have changed from the 1920 tax year to the 2021. So your answer will look different to the model answers on there. It's not that you've done it wrong, it's just the rates and allowances have updated. So it's really good question practice, but just be aware of the changes in details and the updates on there. But again, a really helpful resource that if you just go onto here, I've put on the June 2021 paper, and it just takes you through all the actual processes, what the initial screen will look like, how the questions are going to be laid out, and then, for example, on here, prepare the notes. So that'll be down to the actual format, so that links into the professional marks down here. And then who's it actually been requested by, and then the following marks are available for discussing these areas. So use these as headings within your answer to guide your answer, but look at the marks over here. You've got to be talking more about the costs already incurred and the business premises. Can you see there? So probably 6 marks for business premises, 6 marks for the costs, of a breakdown of 12 marks on there. Make sure you answer all the requirements. But this is the key thing, applying it back to that scenario. You've got the goodwill, the brand name, and the actual schedules that you're given on here. So anything in bold is usually a good sign to actually say, right, what can we learn from this section? What about from this section? And going into it in a lot more detail. And then from that, you can have a look at the answers. So make sure you do the question practice, do it to time, and then like on here with the meeting notes to get those 4 professional marks. We talked about the headings on there for the intangible assets. Look at the layout, look at the details, the workings associated with it. So you'll get into more detailed questions on here where you got the actual trading profits and adjustments on here, and what we maybe have to apportion. So these are key. So you've got 3/12 into one actual company year, and then 5/9 by the looks of it into another. Other things on here, I mean, you've got, I would try to avoid bullet points, but they're just trying to highlight the areas that you need to consider that there is worth 1 mark for you. But this is where the pro formas come into it that we talked about earlier on, that for an inheritance tax question, take the actual format with all the details you put in on the left, with the rates, and then the annual exemptions, take out the figures, and then use this as a guideline for future questions on top of it. So I'll leave the ball in your court on that so that you can have a look through these in more detail. But these are some of the aspects, and just to highlight the details and the specifics and applying it back to the scenario that you will need to do to pass your advanced taxation exam. Then we come on to the technical articles on here, a resource that is highly, highly overlooked by ACCA students. And these are really critical areas that if you're going through past paper questions and you were a bit unsure about corporation tax or chargeable gains or group relief, whatever it may be, I would then be directly going to the technical articles to read it through. Now, as well on here, they actually also highlight for you, relevant for those sitting in June, September or December 2021 or March 2022. So the external examiner with ACCA are highlighting for you on here key areas that they want you to be reading before the actual exam. It's that important that a motorbike has just gone by my window, but we're going to have to highlight that again because it is really, really important. Because I'd be reading, if I had to sit this exam in December 2021, I would be reading all of these articles 100% because they can put in aspects from the technical articles in there, definitely. So I'd be going through them, making sure I understand all of the aspects and just breaking it down by saying, right, this week I'm going to do this article, next week I'm going to do corporation tax, and that is going to give you a much better understanding of the syllabus, and then you'll start to apply it back to those past paper questions as well. Then on here we've actually got the CBE exam technique, another really helpful video from ACCA on there that again you can watch in your own time, it's okay. But this is the cherry on the cake. This is the read the mind of the marker on here. And again, you've got loads of other actual resources linking to other technical articles. Again, have a look through in your own time. We've covered a couple of them already, but actually passing it, improving your performance. But this one on here is an absolute gem. So let me just pull it up for you on here. So I've just been through the answers, and this is actually reading the mind of the actual marker themselves. So this is a really helpful document on here, taking you through some questions that candidates have attempted, and then feedback from the markers themselves saying what actually went well, what went wrong, where do they actually need to improve, and a sort of general layout as well that you could potentially follow. But the best ones on here, I would say, are actually how people have answered the actual requirements. So you can have a look through it yourself, and it shows you on here, it highlights where the key words, where the actual application was, and how the marks were actually allocated. A really helpful tool that helped me develop from actually failing it first time to then passing on there. And it shows you as to, well, what achieved 3 out of 3, with lots of notes as to say, well, which areas of the examination as you go through. So you've got the notes on the side here. So you've got note 8, note 9. And then if you go down to the bottom, there's note 8, there's note 9. So it just walks and talks you through really helpfully on there. But then coming down here, you've got another answer. So the candidate on this passed it with 22 out of 35. And then if we go back up to the top on here, we've actually got an answer where they scored 27.5 out of 35. So again, it's a case of, it's just highlighting for you what a full marker is for the 35 out of 35. And then there should also be some comments at the bottom. So there's the 22 out of 35 as to overall. Oh, steady on. So overall mark for the candidate was 22 out of 35 with some extra notes on where the half marks came from and where they could have actually improved and be more specific. So again, you're looking at that going, that could be very helpful. I agree, it is very helpful. So make sure you pop it on your list as an action point going away from today that you're going to take the time to have a look through that yourself. And then finally on here, you actually have a really helpful frequently asked question Q&A on here, but then make sure it's for the actual correct paper. Again, I'm just going to go on the UK one, nice and simple. But these are the overall sort of average questions or most popular questions that ACCA get us to. How to best prepare, learning the different rules, trusts or technical areas, whatever it may be, with some answers below. So if you're looking at advanced taxation for the first time, I'd probably recommend having a look at this first, because they're the questions you've probably got as well. So another really helpful tool. So that takes us through everything from top to bottom, and again, relating back down to that pass rate. If you follow these things through, you're definitely going to be in the actual ballpark of having a chance of being in the 41% that pass this exam. So let's head back onto the main screen now, and hope you enjoyed that video. 3, 2, 1, go! Well, what did you think to that? I'm sure, Bianca, you're out there as well. I hope those little tips and tricks, along with all the free resources, are going to help you to prepare for that advanced taxation ACCA exam, because these are the resources. If I had to go study it tomorrow, next week, next month, I would definitely be starting off with. If you did find the tips and the actual information in the video helpful, make sure you give the video a massive thumbs up below and a like so that more accounting students can see this content. I'd really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your support. If you do have any other questions like Bianca, make sure you leave me a comment below. I answer them all, and if you'd like me to record any other videos, just keep me posted. The ball's in your court on it. But as ever, with the ball being now in your court, if you would like access to all my free materials, you know what to do. Just simply subscribe at the bottom and you'll get access to all of my free uploads that I post out. I try and do one a week or so, but definitely one a week. It's all good stuff. And as ever, if you've got any colleagues who you think this would benefit, or any study buddies, again, could make the difference in getting the 50 plus, then feel free to actually share this with them. And again, I really hope the resources, all the tips and tricks from my experience, help them to pass their exams too. Well, the final thing is, and I really mean this because I know how tough this exam is, you'll understand it when you get your book and it's about that thick, but best of luck with your advanced taxation exam. Let me know how you get on. It's a real toughie, but the tips and tricks we've been through today, along with the other videos, I really hope are going to be the difference that are going to get you the 50 plus and the pass you deserve. Well, on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers.